All right, joining me now is Connecticut Congressman Jim Himes, of course, the top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman, thanks very much for being here. As a member of the Gang of Eight, you are, of course, one of them. You typically would get a briefing before a significant U.S. military engagement. You and your Democratic colleagues were not, as we understand it, while your Republican colleagues were. Can you explain when and how you learned about this?
Yeah, look, I learned about this strike last night on Twitter, which, as you point out, is an uncomfortable thing for the ranking member of the Intelligence Committee, particularly given the fact that the whole premise here is that something changed, right? That, Prime Minister Netanyahu made reference to new intelligence. There was some mention of it this morning. As a member of the Gang of Eight, you might think that for something this consequential, we would be informed of any change in intelligence. And by the way, I mean, let's not lose sight of the fact that an offensive attack against a foreign nation is something that the Constitution reserves to the Congress of the United States. So bad enough that we weren't informed, but, unconstitutional that we didn't have the opportunity to debate and speak as the representatives of the people on what is one of the more consequential foreign policy things that this country has done in a long time.
Sir, when you talk about the intelligence that we have, the American intelligence, there have been questions about whether we have been relying in doing this on American intelligence or Israeli intelligence. What is your understanding of the American intelligence, and how recently were you updated on that?
Yeah, look, it's been the same story now for decades, right? Which is that the Iranian regime has been making progress towards the development of enough uranium to do a weapon. And if you just look at sort of kilograms of uranium, it's a pretty scary number, right? And the IAEA made this point that they were enriching. Now, creating a weapon is a lot more complicated than just having a bunch of highly enriched uranium, right? It requires a lot of mechanics and technology to actually build that weapon. And of course, it requires the determination to do it. Now, on the second two things, I had not seen any intelligence as a member of the Gang of Eight to suggest that Iran had taken the decision to build a weapon. I don't think there's any intelligence out there that suggests that that's true. And secondly, while it's a little hazier because you don't know what you don't know, I think that our intelligence community and other intelligence agencies around the world believe that Iran was still a fairly long way from being able to put a weapon into a missile that they could use to deliver a weapon outside of Iran. So it's a pretty murky picture intelligence-wise. My own view is that this timing of this attack had an awful lot more to do with the fact that the Iranian air defenses were down because of the Israeli strikes of several months ago, and the fact that you now had a regime, a president in the United States, Donald Trump, who was likely to be far more amenable to this than the previous president was ever going to be.
So I take your earlier point about the constitutionality of these strikes, but when we look at what the administration says that they have accomplished here, that they have set this program back significantly, that these strikes were successful, do you think the world is a safer place this morning than it was yesterday?
Casey, stop. Look, that's insane. That's insane. You don't need to be an intelligence professional to know that we have no idea whether these strikes were successful. Now, if what you're looking for is a big boom and a large hole in the ground, I have very little doubt that our bunker busters did a big boom and a very large hole in the ground. But Casey, we don't know, sitting here right now, whether the highly enriched uranium was in the Fordo facility or in the Natanz facility. We have no idea in the world. Weeks we will develop a more specific idea, but we have no idea in the world right now whether these strikes were in any way successful. Look, I think all three facilities are probably smoking rubble right now, but the Iranians are not dumb people, right? There's some chance that, given that this raid was telegraphed for a couple of days, that they might have thrown a couple hundred kilograms of 60% enriched uranium into the back of a truck and moved it somewhere else. In which case, you've got the possibility, and I'll stress possibility here, that there's a lot of highly enriched uranium uranium sitting underneath a hornet-mad regime that has decided that the only way we're going to forestall this in the future is to actually sprint towards a nuclear weapon. Now, if tomorrow morning they kick out the inspectors and decide to do this in some cave that we don't even know about, there is a very real possibility that sometime in the next 6 months or so, we see what we saw in Pakistan or in India, which is, holy smokes, there's a nuclear weapon being tested. So anyway, as you can tell, anybody who says that they have any idea whatsoever about whether these raids did anything other than create a big boom and a lot of dust has no idea what they're talking about.
Fair points, all. Sir, if this is where the assessments are now, which is, as you say, we don't know what's happened next, what is your understanding from everything you know in your position on the Gang of Eight of what the possibilities are for retaliation against this? What should we be most worried about? What do you expect to happen next?
Well, Casey, a lot of people are talking about the obvious military implications here. The Iranian regime could decide to, unleash their short-range missiles against our air base in Qatar and our naval base in Bahrain and lots of troops in the region, 40,000 of them. They could do a lot of damage. Now, that as a number of people have pointed out, would probably be suicidal on their part. But again, I want to stress that there is another worse option here, which is that the Iranians go quiet for the next 3 to 6 months. We don't hear from them because they've decided that they don't want to end their regime by an open front attack on Al Udeid or on the Bahrain naval base. But they managed to move that uranium. And again, we just don't know. But they managed to move that uranium and they go quiet for 3 to 6 months, during which time they assemble a weapon. That is a possibility. Again, the United States was caught completely off guard when Pakistan and India tested nuclear weapons back in the late 1990s. And if you were a cagey Iranian leader right now, you would say, hey, we should not, poke this tiger anymore. But you know what? We're going to learn the lesson of Ukraine, which gave up its nuclear weapons. We're going to learn the lesson of North Korea, which, once it developed a nuclear weapon, was not going to get attacked by the United States. And let's develop one of these things. So again, I'm not saying that I know the probabilities of that happening, but the president has just taken an enormous, enormous gamble. And if history matters, Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq, if history matters, gambles in the Middle East very rarely go the way you expect or even hope they might go.
Are there any risks to Americans here at home based on this, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, of course there are, right? And we talk a lot about the possibilities that the Iranians have, terrorist cells, et cetera. Our FBI and our intelligence community is very, very good. So I don't want to overstate the risk. But if the Iranians decided to just burn the whole house down, and close the Straits of Hormuz and attack American bases and activate whatever terror cells that they do have around the world, and I do suspect they have some, things could get very, very hot very quickly. So again, I don't want to get into the game of trying to scare Americans, but if this goes very hot and very ugly, yeah, we'll have to be really, really focused on the possibility that there could be attempts to strike, Americans in the homeland.
All right. Congressman Jim Himes, Vice Chair of the House Intelligence Committee. Sir, thanks very much for spending some time with us today. I really appreciate it.